Hello, hello. Welcome back for anyone who ever decides to watch these. We are doing Exodus 16 today. So, they're away from the Egyptians. Egypt's basically wiped out as a superpower, but now they're getting into wandering the wilderness. This is the beginning. Now, they haven't started the real 40 years of wandering because they haven't actually gone into the land of Canaan and been scared of it yet and haven't gotten their punishment. So I'm getting ahead of myself there. But you're starting to see the little bit of whining. They're already starting to be like, Moses, what about this? What about that? And it's going to get into it here. Despite the miracles that God shows them, despite all that they've seen and will continue to see, they will always, what next? What now? What's going to happen? Oh, it's we're but of food. Instead of trusting in the Lord and just putting their best foot forward every day, nope. What about it? What about this? And then God gives them it, and they're still, oh, it's not enough or it's not good enough. It's very funny the way it all works out. How, we today as Christians understand that, if you trust in the Lord, that doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean you just expect things to come to you. But you put your best foot forward and work your hardest, do as best you can without becoming corrupt, and God will always look after you. Make sure you have enough. That's the main thing. Always you'll have enough. And these guys don't understand that, and they get more than enough, and they're still like whining about it. You'll see. So I'm going to read from the New International Version. I always have my multiple translation Bible here so I can look back and forth. Gift from my grandma. 16:1 Exodus. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin. I tried finding out about this desert of Sin. I didn't try too hard. I should have looked a little longer. I just thought it was funny how it's the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. So on the 15th day of the second month. So it's been a while. They've been kind of wandering around looking for, or going back to their homeland. And again, they're taking a whole bunch of stuff with them, so it's slow moving. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The grumbling begins. The grumblers. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt! There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." So it's just such a cliche. I mean, you see this in movies. It doesn't have anything to do with religion, and you'll see it in a TV show or something. That there's the guy who starts lowering morale in the battle ranks. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter how much good's happening. They're just a Debbie Downer. So they are away from a basic slavery, and I always have to get back into this, even though if you watch all of my videos in succession, you know this, that you won't find any historical evidence that the Israelites were Egypt's slaves, because they weren't on paper. It's very easy to understand if you really pay attention to history and the way that world powers work. They slowly removed the rights of the Israelites over time, and segregated them and basically made them into a forced labor class. So they weren't slaves, they were a forced labor class. And a lot of them didn't realize this. That's why Moses had to go. And remember, he didn't ask for his people to be free at first. He asked for 3 days for them to go and worship in their homeland to their God. And this was not only to start the initiation of hardening Pharaoh's heart against God and showing his glory, but it's also to wake up the Israelites who are still like, we're not slaves. No, no. They'd already genocided a generation of their children. And that's when the first cries really started coming up. But now Moses had to just ask for 3 days to go worship God, and Pharaoh wouldn't give it to him. They're like, what? Because a lot of them still thought that they were free. Like, of course Pharaoh's going to let us go worship our God. It's been 400 years. We haven't asked to go back and worship our God en masse yet. We're not slaves. Oh my gosh, he won't let us go. It woke them up to the fact that they were slaves. As Kanye West says, you're a slave of your mind. So you see this all the time. The grumbling, it just begins right away. back when we were in Egypt, we had pots of meat all around us, and here we have to work to get our food, and it's so difficult living. It's had to have happened so many times through history. Think about all the people today who want to kind of live a simpler life, and the first hardship that they get. So, I want to, homesteading's becoming big. They want to start homesteading, and they fail with one of their crops one year, and money's a little bit tight, and they can't buy as many fancies and lollies, Then what happens? Oh, they start grumbling. Oh, we were better off. We were better off in the system. We were better off in the system. This was recorded in history. This is what was happening to a lot of the slaves. A lot of slaves throughout history, even in American slave history, they started to grumble a little bit about being set free. Now, plenty of plantation, remember, all right, this is so much off-grid, but American slave owners were such a small population, such a tiny population actually owned slaves. Most people didn't know what was going on in these plantations. That, and a lot of it was sick and disgusting, because these are the elites, these are the evil people of the world, just like in the Old Testament. But there were still some who didn't treat their slaves bad. It wasn't like they whipped them and all that. They treated them, gave them food, let them live their lives, but basically, you're never free to leave. It's kind of like the Israelites in Egypt. They didn't realize they were slaves. Eat. You got to do the work that I tell you to do, but here's, we'll give you plenty of food because we want you to be strong. We want you to be healthy. We'll give you a shelter because we don't want anything to happen to you. Breed, keep breeding, because that gives me more labor. So not all these plantation owners were treating them in a necessarily evil way. Now, slavery is evil, and I'm not saying these slave owners were good, but they weren't, it wasn't like roots all the time. A lot of them, like, after the slaves were set free, like, what are we going to do? I don't know how to live any other way. They're not going to provide me my food anymore. They didn't know what to do. So initially, getting over that big hump was a lot of grumbling, a lot of whining. That's the history of mankind. That's our human nature. There's always going to be that little bit of doubt, and then there's going to be that person who lets the doubt speak itself, and then that doubt that speaks itself starts to grow. And it doesn't matter how much you're given, how much you've seen the glory of God, it's always there. I mean, you as an individual can overcome it, but as a society, it will always be there. And that's what's happening right here. They've seen the miracles of God at this point. But now it's been almost second month or whatever, 15 days into the second month, a month and a half, and okay, why can't I just sit down in my nice house that the Egyptians provide for me and have food they provide for me, even though I have to do all the work and labor they tell me to, and I don't get any profit from my own labor? But it was easy. It was an easy life. They want to go back to that easy living. So they're whining. I don't know, that was a long tangent just for the first 3 verses. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. Enough. Remember that word. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on other days. Okay? So on the 6th day they gather twice, and then they're supposed to prepare it. Because remember, 7th day is the day of rest. They can't prepare it anymore. And they can't gather it that day either. Now remember, this is a test. Will they follow his instructions? Because they're only supposed to gather enough. Verse 6, So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. Because they don't already. They have to keep being reminded. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us? Moses also said, You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord. Because remember, They are grumbling in their minds against Moses. Now they're putting the blame on Moses and Aaron. They're going to Moses and Aaron like, we were better off in Egypt. What have you done to us? We'd been better off to die by the Lord's hand in Egypt than to be out here trying so hard to make ends meet and get food gathered for our family. And Moses and Aaron, and Moses not only tells them that God's heard their grumbling, he's going to provide for them, but he tells them, because you've grumbled against him. Who are Aaron and I? We're just men that God used. We're not the ones in charge here. We're not the ones making the decisions. We follow God's instructions. And because you're complaining about the things that we're telling you that God has instructed us to do, you're grumbling against God. So remember that when you come to Moses and when you come to me and Aaron and grumble and whine and complain, remember who we are following. Remember what you're grumbling against. It's God. It's not us. And see, we do this all the time in life. We want to put the blame on a person, or we want to put the blame on an institution or something or other. And just placing blame in general is ridiculous. Unless it's, it's straight up like this guy killed that person or this person raped that person. Yeah, put the blame and justice comes to him, of course. But we as a society just want to put, or as a people, we want to put our woes on something. We do. Put the blame on something. And God is such an easy target. But they don't want to come out and say that they're grumbling against God, so they go against Moses. They go against Aaron. How often is the church attacked for not being accepting because they point out that a sin is a sin? Homosexuality is the big one. Just to say that it's a sin is considered not inclusive, and they get attacked for it. And all they're doing is speaking God's truth, the truth of the Bible. They're not saying we don't love people who are sinners and have sin in their life, but we're not going to sit here and say it's not a sin because the Bible says so. So they end up getting attacked. Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty classically got attacked like this. He got a gotcha moment on him. Because people want to put their blame on something, the blame for their sin on something. So what's the whole argument? God made me this way. You're putting the blame on God. Let's put the blame on God. Oh, my doubt, my woes, because I don't know if we're actually going to be better off here than we were in Egypt. I'm going to blame Moses and Aaron for that. But Moses and Aaron are just following God's instructions. Just like those people who are just following the Bible, who will say or quote Leviticus or anything in the Bible where it mentions that marriage between a man and a woman or whatnot, they get attacked. Put the blame on these hateful people. And there's a lot of liberal Christians who will say, that's not biblical. But you're going against God. When you attack that person who's quoting the Bible, you're going against God. It's not that person. And Moses makes that clear to these people. It's something we need to remember. Who are we going against? Whose laws, whose word are we defying? Is it that man? Or is it a logos-driven truth that is undeniable? Verse 9. Sorry, I'm going off all these tangents, but I enjoy it. And I don't really have any viewers, so. Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, just a second, I want to make sure of something here. Yeah. They looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. That's always crazy to me, the glory of the Lord. I'm going to read the King James and see exactly what that sounds like for that one. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they were looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. I think that's Christ, the glory of the Lord. I'm not sure exactly what glory of the Lord means. In my mind, it always means Christ. But the Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it is. Moses said to them, "It is the bread of the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer," which translates to about 3 pounds of, okay, "for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told. All right, I'm going to wait right there. So stopping at verse 17. There's so much cool stuff about this. So first off, manna is what this is called, and that is literally Hebrew for like what is it? They don't know. They name of it. It means what is it? They don't know what it is, and it's baffled scholars. You can actually, I think it's Ancient Aliens, that show. It's a cool show, but they just ignore. I get it. They have like a theme and it's aliens, but the fact that they never mention the possibility that it's angels and fallen angels, and like they won't let Steve Quayle talk on there and stuff like that. Can't watch it too much anymore. But there's a pretty cool episode where they talk about in the Hebrew text. It describes a machine that some dude tried to remake, and he did, and it does produce this sort of like bread substance. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't really know if I believe all that. I think it was just more of a miracle. I think God uses natural things usually. Like when you hear about a machine or like the flying cities in the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas and all that stuff, that sounds to me more like fallen angels. Because I always think God tends to use nature to perform his miracles. Like with the parting of the Red Sea, where it talks about the wind, in the nostrils of God. And with the quails just like coming and laying there, there's been a lot of research, and I didn't want to get too much into it, but how they might have brought, like, depending on where the quails came from, on their feathers and the stuff they'd been eating, might have come and brought stuff in and mixed with whatever was there, the moisture of the dew. They created this bread, so there's natural science that would support that. And I also think that, let's say these quails were eating something, and it got on their feathers and it got on them, and they came back and they brought it there, and the dew caused this bread to be made the way that not a lot of, but that they've theorized. Also reminds me how birds die. You blow bubbles at weddings now. You don't throw out the rice or anything because it makes like their stomachs blow up. I wonder if that might have been what caused the quails to come there and then just like lay down and die. If whatever they had been eating, they flew over here, they're like, oh man, I don't feel good, and they die. Those are the quails, and the stuff that was on them gets in the soil and mixes with whatever in this area to create the manna. I think it's more like that. You'll hear the theory, all kinds of theories, but I tend to think God uses the natural world because it's his world. He created it. He controls it. He uses that for his miracles is the way I tend to see it. But let's remember now, they're told to take how much they need, about 3 pounds for every person in your tent. So you're just take enough. That's the whole point. And this is something that we in society today has totally forgot. It's about having enough. It's not about having as much as you can have. It's not about all the materialistic things in the world. It's about having enough. And in this world, there's more than enough. I mean, you know how much stuff you can get for free in this world? It's ridiculous. Hand-me-downs, trust me. All right. So I'm going to repeat verse 16 again. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer, 3 pounds, for each person you have in your tent. Verse 17. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Good. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to swell. So Moses was angry with them. Okay, stop right there. Remember, this is a test. So what just happened? Every day this is going to happen. Go and gather it. They measured it. Everyone just took enough. They're doing great. Awesome. But some of them didn't believe that it would happen again. They had the doubt. It happened this one time. What if it doesn't happen again tomorrow? Let's make sure we have some for tomorrow. Put this aside. Now, is this saying that preparing for the future is wrong? No. No. But they weren't just preparing for the future. They were not trusting in God. Okay? It's totally different for you to make sure you can food for the winter and prepare for, whatever it is. Get your family ready for the next month worth of bills. That's all great, obviously. But when you've seen the miracles of God firsthand, pillar of fire in front of you, the parting of the Red Sea, the plagues, everything, turning bitter water to drinkable water, everything that he's done for you, and he just did this for you again, and all he tells you is don't keep it overnight. Are you going to trust him then? Okay, put yourself in this situation. All you've seen, will you trust God then? Some of them didn't. Some of them didn't. This isn't no longer about just preparing for the future. This is about, do you trust me? Do you trust in me, the Lord? Do you trust in the Lord, your creator, that I will watch over you and I will take care of you? Let's see if you trust me. And again, they prove that they don't trust him. I mean, this is why they have to wander the desert and everything. So, what happens? Well, whatever type of bread this was, it's not meant to be kept overnight because it starts to spoil. And it gets maggots in it and it starts to smell. So, of course, Moses is angry with them. What did I freaking tell you guys? What was the commandment? What were the instructions of God? These aren't like my instructions. I just went over this with you. It's not mine and Aaron's instructions. This is from God. Why are you still acting like this? Bunch of little kids. Verse 21. Each morning everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be the day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning." So they saved it until morning. Now they have to prepare it. You see, these other ones just saved the dough. They didn't prepare it. So on the Sabbath day, you can prepare some on the 6th day, you can prepare some for the Sabbath. Verse 24, so they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you I love this part. Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out." So the people rested on the 7th. Like, once again, how long are you going to refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? So these guys were like, "Oh, yeah, he's not going to give us any on the 7th, so we're supposed to prepare twice as much on the 6th. They do it, it works out. And then what happens? Some people still go out to see if they can gather some. So, I'll get some extra today. Oh, I'll find some extra out here." And God's like, and again, I'm of the belief that whenever that you're talking to God in the Old Testament, it's Christ. And that's why he'll say things. Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. So they're saying they're speaking to the Lord, but he's referring to the Lord Father, because it's usually Christ. This is my opinion, but it's also the opinion of a lot of theologians. So anyway, Christ is like yelling at him. And this is what people who get the lovey-dovey sense of Christ from the New Testament, which is great. He is a loving God. But he's still a father. He's still like, what is the matter with you? He'll still get after you, which he does plenty of times. And I can relate so much to this because as a elementary PE teacher, you see it in kids. Like they're acting like little kids, who they think that How are we going to play this game? I don't see any of the balls. Yeah, I got the balls. Don't worry about it. Well, where are the balls? Just don't worry about it. Go on your side, get your jersey on, and I'll get it set up. Yeah, but why aren't the balls out here right now? Are you sure you have enough of them? It's like, all right. And this is the way they're acting with God. They're like, hey, yeah, he said all these things, but I'll go try to collect more on the Sabbath. Oh, it's not out here. What's up with this? And just keep my commands. Verse 31, the people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. See, so you can look this stuff up. There's a lot of people out there who have theories about what these quail had brought in to the area, and that's why the quail always preceded the manna and everything. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has given command. This is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt." Again, this goes back to the first son being dedicated and all this stuff where they have to keep up these traditions. And the manna is another one. Keep it. Show the next generation. Because you guys right now are already doubting me and what I have done for you and will continue to do for you. Think about the next generation who doesn't even see the miracles. They need evidence. They need proof. Now, Christ, obviously, like we go to doubting Thomas, he's like, blessed are you who see, you see me and you believe. Blessed are those who do not see me and yet still believe. So, like, those who don't need to see it and still believe, Christ is, like, very proud of. But that doesn't mean he doesn't still want to say, want everyone to see. So he knows there are going to be those who need evidence to see. And he still wants to give them those evidence. So keep the manna for the future generations, so they'll know. Verse 33, so Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law, so that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years, until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. Eating the same thing every day. Which really isn't that bad. It's not. I do it quite a bit. So, this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the grumblings. We're already seeing it. We're seeing it throughout the time since they've left Egypt. But it's really getting evident that they are not going to pass God's tests. They're still the chosen people because they're chosen. I don't think it's as much of a bloodline thing as it's because they were chosen. They would be the ones who would write it down, who would keep record of these things. You had to have a civilization that was going to last and keep record of everything. And also, you didn't want it to be too mighty of a civilization because that wouldn't show God's glory. If you have a small peoples who last throughout history, that was like, wow, how did that happen? Well, they must have had a powerful God, the God. So they're already grumbling. He gives them a test. They can't keep it. Let's collect extra. Let's keep it overnight. Let's go out on the Sabbath and get some more. I just see Christ being like, oh, gosh. Sorry, Dad. I don't know why they can't do it. And Moses is just like, guys, seriously, this isn't me. I don't care. You think I want to eat manna every day? This is what we're doing, okay? Just deal with it. Follow the rules. You didn't follow the rules again. All right. Again, as a coach and a teacher, it's kids. They're acting like kids. The kids know the rules in games, but they still don't play by them. Like they always think, in dodgeball, they think that, oh, I'm not looking. Even if I get hit, I can pretend to still be up, even though they know they got hit. This is like what the Israelites are doing. I'll sneak out in the morning and collect some extra, and God won't know. They won't know because they don't really think that God can see them. They don't really believe. They don't really think that it's important to do what's right even when no one's looking. You know, that old cliche. All right. Hope everyone enjoyed this kind of a longer one. Went on some tangents, but if you ever watch this, I think it was very interesting. Everyone have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or good night. God bless.